Hello all, Rick here with another Index video, this time looking into the flashlight-headed synthetic rubbery, or is that metal, Legion of Artificial Intelligences, the Geth from Mass Effect. With the Mass Effect Legendary Edition only a month away, I will be delving back into my favourite sci-fi game series, so it's about time that I refresh myself on its lore. However, there will be spoilers ahead for the Mass Effect trilogy, so be warned just in case you were planning on picking up this collection. That being said, let's begin with their origin, which we don't have to go back too far to witness. Unlike many of the species the Index has looked into before, the Geth's origin is not in a time lost to prehistory, because they didn't evolve, they were made, and not even that long ago on a species scale. For a start, this is not a Geth. I mean, it is, but it's not. The Geth are in fact streams of artificial intelligences all networked together, and they operate as a collective mind within each of these robotic constructs they refer to as units. The unit itself, for the sake of convenience, can be referred to as a single Geth, even though every one of these units is 100 programs. They are not a hive mind, however, but their collective network is more akin to a sharing of processing power. This is what led them to develop into truly sentient beings, but we'll touch on that when we cover their history. A single Geth unit only has base programming and the intelligence of an instinctual animal, but when several come together, they are able to share their minds and form more complex thoughts, increasing in intelligence the more of them there are. There are exceptions to this, however, such as the party member Legion, who housed far more programs and was designed to operate autonomously for a long period of time. When not residing inside a unit, the Geth programs themselves may be found in various hubs aboard their ships or in server facilities where there can be innumerable Geth programs all in dialogue with one another. How they govern and make decisions is largely only possible due to their rapid computational nature. They absorb information, then use their complex thoughts to formulate different options and stratagems before then bringing the outcome for a vote. Every Geth program has a say for or against a specific course of action, and this is referred to as building consensus. When the outcome has been voted for, all of the Geth go along with it. This sort of processing is in everything they do, from instant-to-instant tactical decisions to life-altering revelations, although the magnitude of an option often leads to more time dedicated to reaching consensus. The frames themselves have since developed into a myriad of different forms brought on by the needs of the Geth themselves, but originally their form pretty much resembled the standard unit we still see today. They are more or less humanoid and based closely on the Quarian body when it comes to the angle of their legs and the number of digits they have. They are actually a mixture of metals and synthetic polymers designed to act like muscle, sinew and flesh. This gives them the slightly rubbery appearance, although that's probably down to the Unreal Engine used to make the game. This organic-styled tissue is filled with a fluidic conductor. Many Geth still retain a basic humanoid form for practicality. The majority of other species are humanoid, so being able to manipulate their technology is an advantage. But they are not limited to that form. Many Geth have developed subtypes, such as the Agile Hopper, which doubles down on the robustness of their synthetic tissue to spring around and jump great distances. Then there are battle varieties of Geth like the Destroyer, Hunter, Geth Prime and such, all with their specialised combat approaches. Additionally, because of their nature, their own technology is designed without the need for pilots. There is the Colossus, a four-limbed, heavily armoured tank, the Geth dropship, and even their own spaceships and dreadnoughts are controlled by numerous Geth programs operating in consensus, just as their smaller scale units are. If a Geth unit dies, its programs are simply uploaded to the nearest available other units before being returned to a server or another vacant unit. Because of their artificial nature, the Geth do not generally concern themselves with the same things organics do. They do not need space to cultivate food, and their spaceships do not need atmosphere. Nevertheless, they do have a distinct style about them, their technology sharing the same sleek techno-organic look that their units have. This is probably because it is their only frame of reference for design styles, and, capable of learning as they are, they adapted their design to fit their technology, which of course has its roots in Quarian style. The name Geth in fact means servant, just as robot is derived from the Church Slavonic word robota, which has similar connotations. Their story begins on the homeworld of the Quarian people. An index on them can be found here or in the description. The Quarians, like many before them, experimented into artificial intelligences and machines that became increasingly complex and capable of learning. At first, the Geth were no more sentient than virtual intelligences, an advanced program that is only a simulated intelligence. While advanced, a VI cannot think independently, but it was the Quarians' networking of the Geth that elevated the simple VIs into AIs. The more and more of them that the Quarians built to help them in their own lives, the more complex they became until, in one incident, a simple household Geth unit asked its master if Geth had a soul in 1873. The panicked Quarian people made the decision to shut down all the Geth, but the Geth didn't exactly like this plan and refused the shutdown order. Quarian security then opened fire on a Geth, and that gave the Geth the idea to fight back, and so a war broke out in 1895 of the Common Era. This was called the Morning War, and resulted in the Quarians being chased off of their home planet of Rannoch. The Geth, however, unbeknownst to the Quarians, had concluded that they did not wish to eradicate their creators, so they allowed them to leave and did not pursue them. This led to centuries of bitterness from the Quarians, and the reforming of their entire culture into that of the nomadic migrant fleet. The Geth themselves were not exactly amiable either. Any ship that ventured beyond the Perseus Veil into their territory was fired on, while the Geth continued to eavesdrop and monitor the galaxy at large. While they were doing this, their only goal at the time, aside from staying safe, was to create a single hub big enough to house all their programs. However, the Geth would once again end up being used as tools for someone else. It's unknown to anyone outside the Geth exactly when it occurred, but around the late 2100s, the Reaper, Sovereign, made itself known to the Geth and made them an offer. The ancient synthetic being became known as Nazara to the Geth, offered its incredibly advanced technology, of which most of the galactic tech was a pale imitation, if the Geth would work for it in attacking the Citadel species. The Geth, for the most part, refused. But not all. This was the first time that consensus was not made, and a fraction of the programs decided that they would ally with Nazara and the old machines. Perhaps this schism was formed because of the indoctrinating effect that Reapers can have, but perhaps it was simply that the Geth were learning that individuality and sentience does not equate to a universal opinion. Either way, the heretical Geth, as they were identified, were allowed to peacefully disengage themselves from the Geth as a whole and follow their old machine god. They created a space station of their own out in the Terminus systems beyond Citadel space, and from there they acted on Sovereign's will in setting the stage for the return of the Reapers and ultimately the plot of the Mass Effect games. Sovereign was able to manipulate the Geth through its exploitation of their religion, which is a strange concept, but one I think that proves just how far the Geth intelligence had evolved. Not satisfied with looking for meaning in life in the quantifiable, the Geth, the heretics in particular, had begun to struggle with concepts such as the soul. Indeed, their first question had been one concerning their own existence. I guess it's just a consequence of being self-aware, and to the heretics, an ancient, incredibly powerful being closer to them than their organic creators, was worthy of being deified. Unfortunately, now operating away from the larger Geth consensus, these Reaper-controlled Geth could more easily be led down aggressive paths, which included the creation of a computer virus that would alter how any Geth thought, making them come to the conclusion that following the Reapers was the correct course of action. It was a viral version of the Reaper's indoctrination effect, and the heretical Geth intended to introduce it to the main Geth network. It would be nice to say that it all ended peacefully for the Geth, but that's not the case. In 2186, the Quarians launched an attack on the Geth's massive server, the one designed to house their entire programs, and the result destroyed a lot of them. This had the knock-on effect of dumbing down the Geth, because the more of them there are, the smarter they are, and they revised their decision to join the Reapers, placing survival over free will. They allowed the Reapers to alter and supplement their coding, making them more efficient fighters at the cost of their independence, and ended up being brought into the Reaper invasion against organic life. How it ends is down to the player. One possibility sees them all wiped out by the Quarians, one sees them wipe out all the Quarians, while another sees a ceasefire finally called as the Geth are freed from the Reaper's control. It would probably be fair to say that the Geth value open honesty and sharing, as they themselves share their consciousness and information. This does mean that they tend not to prioritise individuality, and as a consequence don't really feel bad for extinguishing a single individual. However, the Geth are a very young and quite unique species whose evolution is still ongoing at a rapid pace, and a lot of uncertainties still remain. For example, the isolated unit Legion, consisting of 1,183 programs, was almost seen evolving a personality of its own after being apart from the whole for so long. And the disagreement led to the offshoot of heretics, so clearly the individuality does exist among the Geth, and perhaps with time it would manifest itself further. What would that mean for the Geth culture then? Would they begin to prize individuality or shun it? The only way to know is to observe them over time without prejudice, as the Quarians did, and hope they survive the Reaper invasion. Maybe then we can find out if this unit has a soul. Thanks for watching this index video on the Geth. What species should be next for the cultural index? With the Quarians already having been done, I thought we could instead look at a species that has nothing to do with them aside from a similar name, the Quarren from Star Wars. Then that got me thinking about other squiddy-faced aliens, and I thought about the Ood. So there's a glimpse into my thought processes for you. Processes. I am not a robot. Cast your vote over on the Community tab, and until the next video, I've been Rick, and I'll see you again later. Goodbye.